Hi Diana, this is Jackie in the library, and I wanted to get back to you on your email about hydraulic fracturing or fracking, as you said that you are looking for information for your paper. The first thing you'll want to do is, well, a couple questions. I'm a little behind getting back to you. Part of the reason is I reached out to Ashley Benson. Writing 115 doesn't usually require the use of peer-reviewed sources. Peer-reviewed sources are very specific things, and I think they're great for students in writing 115 to be introduced to them. But usually it's not until students are at a more one of their subsequent writing courses, 121, 122, that peer-reviewed material starts being actually a required resource. It doesn't mean you can't use them. I just wanted to clarify with Ashley if that was the case, because that changes our search strategy a little bit. Regardless, she didn't get back to me, so I'm going to stick to what has been consistently the case, which is you're not required to use peer-reviewed sources. So I'm going to show you a lot of resources today. They may or may not be peer-reviewed, but they should all be usable and informative for the paper that you'd like to write. So the first thing, of course, is to get into the research is our library databases. I don't know if Ashley's introduced library databases to you. These are, I guess, curated research collections. They are organized, indexed by other companies. They contain full-text articles, reports. We have ebooks, statistics. We have audio, media, a ton of stuff. And I'd like to explain, this is on our library website, but it's not a website. It's a totally different resource. We could probably also find a lot of great information on the web, particularly for fracking, a lot of not so good information. But the databases really kind of ensure that you're going to get quality information, or certainly increase the chances. So the first thing you'll want to do is go to the library homepage. The URL is right there. From the college homepage, you could also click on library. And we'll just scroll down. And we're going to click on library databases, but if you're off campus, the one thing I want to make sure that you have is your library barcode number. If you don't, it's no problem to get one. You just have to fill out one of our forms, which is online in our services and support. And if you're new to the library, you can study from home, or your favorite cozy spot, as we like to advertise. If you're brand new, which means you've never created a library account, that will be just following the new patron registration, where you complete the form. It slowly comes up, and this, you're not early college credits, but you fill this out and email it to us, and ta-da, we will review your form and send you a library barcode. It's about 14 digits long, and that's what you need to get into our library resources from off campus. Sometimes I like to say you get what you pay for, and your library card number is like, in a sense, your ticket in to our databases, because we do pay for those. So we'll click on library to get back to our main page. And ready for business, ready for research, we'll now click on our library databases. And I'd like to start with our top library databases. These in general are probably what you'll use for here at VMCC 90% of your research. And if you plan on continuing your education, at a 4-year or just otherwise, you might continue to use these as well. So a couple things I want to point out. We are going to look at opposing viewpoints, and we'll look at academic one file. I think that should be enough. We could get into this academic search complete as well. These two, the Gale databases, I'd like to point out, these are provided by the Oregon State Library. They're available to all Oregonians, which means even as you leave VMCC, you will always have access to these databases or something similar. Everybody in your family does. Everybody you know who is an Oregon resident, as long as they have a library card to some library, you can get into these. Academic Search Complete, that is a BMCCC subscription, so the public libraries don't have this. But EBSCO is a great one to eventually become familiar with, especially if you plan on transferring to a 4-year university. This is a very common database that pretty much every college in the country has access to. So it's very useful. Since you're doing fracking, you might want to dip into access science. I think it's fairly easy to use. I'm not going to cover it, but it's really user-friendly and can give you some overviews and things like that. So starting with opposing viewpoints. Click there. And again, if you're off campus, you probably have been prompted by this point for your library barcode number. So you would have put that in. And opposing viewpoints is interesting. There's this big search box at the top. You could go ahead and type in fracking, and most likely you'll find something. It's also organized by different larger subject groups, which, you know, you came in with a topic. If you didn't have an idea of what you wanted to look for, this is really helpful for students in that situation who might say, well, I don't know what I want to write about, but I'm really interested in, I don't know, health and medicine, or I'm really interested in, you know, society and culture. Fracking is one of those interesting things where it really, depending on your take, and that's going to be the tough challenge you have right now, is deciding what you want to say about fracking, because it can fall into any of these areas. You know, it's certainly a business and economic issue. It's certainly a health and medicine issue. Certainly legal and political issues. I mean, it really can maybe not more diplomacy, but it really can fall into any of these areas. So, so you deciding what your ultimate so what that is meaningful for you and writing your paper is probably one of the challenges you might have when you're trying to narrow your topic. So I did happen to look earlier, and again, we could have done the keyword search up here, but fracking was under energy and environmentalism. And you can see, you know, there's a ton of different topics that someone can map to, but here's fracking right here. And with the Gale databases, opposing viewpoints, they give you an overview of the topic, really handy. And you can view more to read the whole thing to kind of give you this situational type of introduction to the topic. You might find some really good language in here that you yourself might want to use when you're introducing your topic to your reader. That can sometimes be really helpful to, really some basic information. Again, stuff you might already know, but it's sometimes nice to look at the language someone is using and apply it with your own. So, opposing viewpoints is then organized by different format types. So you will see a lot of viewpoints. They always list a top 3, but in this case there's a total of 28. You'll see statistics, a top 3, though in this case there's only 3. Ton of audio, so most of them from NPR, 204, a ton of news. Videos, it's kind of interesting. Magazines, references, which are more like encyclopedias, and some of their recommended websites that they would recommend. You'll also see academic journals. Those are probably the closest you'll find within this database to peer-reviewed journals. Peer-reviewed journals being, you know, those journals, articles that are written by professors, researchers, scholars, kind of the top well-known names in the scientific area, articles that, you know, follow a sound methodology, are backed up with, you know, tremendous amounts of evidence and that sort of thing. A lot different than, you know, what you would find, say, in Time magazine, which could be really informative, but, you know, they're not going to have a list of references necessarily. They're not going to be, you know, necessarily Dr. So-and-so from, I don't know, University of Illinois discussing this topic. They're a journalist or a reporter. Still not necessarily bad information, but not that peer-reviewed information. So you can start any of these. I'll just click here because I want to see all 28 viewpoints. When you do look at the viewpoints here, you're going to usually find kind of a either or type of situation. So you might find yourself in between the either or. But you'll see both sides of an issue, and you'll see some person commenting here in this case saying fracking is safe. Well, 2 articles down, you'll get another point of view, another argument saying fracking is not safe. These 2 are immediately next to one another. Fracking does not contribute to global warming. There's another argument saying it does. You know, there's public health risk. There's not harm. So all the things that would be thought about, you know, are being considered. The other thing I want to point out, on all these pages that you go to, you can see ways to limit your search. I would like to view more. So if you wanted to focus specifically on one of these issues, like say maybe you're more interested in water pollution or water quality or groundwater, fortunately it comes with 3 places, you could click there and they'll take you to the 9 articles specifically focused on that. Or if you wanted to focus more on the gas industry, energy policy, you could certainly do that. So very interesting. I'm gonna, I'm sorry, let me actually open one. Here's what it looks like. So the articles are here. I always like to point out you can listen to these and they're downloadable. So if you'd like to, if you drive a lot and want to download these, you can certainly do that. The whole articles here, they have some, these aren't necessarily references, but they do point you to other resources that might be really helpful, something for you to consider. And they have a source citation, really helpful. This is MLA. And one thing that I do know Ashley well enough to say is that she is not interested in you including this long URL. You can copy this whole thing, paste it into your paper, but delete that bit, and you're good. Let me scroll up here. There's also a way that you can look at the citation tools up there. MLA is the first one. Again, you can copy and post that. But if you're in another class that's using APA, you just click the down arrow and use it, switches it to APA format. Did it do it? Is it going slow? Maybe it didn't, I'm just not saying it. Oh yeah, there it is, because the date's usually the clearest indicator. But as far as saving this, you can download these, you know, email them to yourselves. Saving is a little scary. Saving works, but you have to have an account, and you can create your own account within Gale, and this follows you everywhere. So if you are, 2 years from now still doing some research on another topic, but want to reference something that maybe you already saved, well, you can just log into your account, and there you are. It's pretty cool. So let's go ahead, and I think that's pretty straightforward. It's just a matter, these are going to do similar things. It's just a different topic type, so these will be statistics instead, these will be audio instead, but similar in nature with how you access those. So I'm going to go back to our library page. Actually, I can try to get back here. That's easier. And library databases, top library databases, and we're going to click on Academic One File. Okay, so this database is owned by Gale, so there's some things that look a little bit similar, but it is, instead of being kind of what I call that other database, which is a breadcrumb, you follow the breadcrumbs to your topic, this is having you think a little bit more about your topic and what you might want to write about. So say, you could certainly type in fracking. Absolutely. But I'm sure you type better than I do. But you might want to say fracking, and you might have a particular so what that you've discovered. You might be saying, I'm really interested in fracking and, water pollution from our last example. You might be really interested in fracking and just general energy policy. That's where you can add some of those terms to really focus in on what you're interested in as a researcher. You could also just do this, and you can narrow even at this point. And you can see it also says, hey, you might want to try hydraulic fracturing, something you already knew. So how these are organized is what's going to come up first is those academic journals. Again, you can limit to peer-reviewed right away if you'd like to do that. If you want to limit to magazines, that sort of thing, you can certainly do that. But you can see there's about 1,000 results, so there's a couple different ways you can narrow these down. One is you can search within the results, so if you want fracking but definitely water pollution, you can just type in whatever ad you want to narrow your search by. You can also limit by date, so if you want to find everything in the past year, you can certainly do that. If you want to find everything from the past 3 years, just, you can follow this custom, let's move my window here, this custom date range area to get the most current information on this topic, which for science makes sense. You can again narrow by subject. I pointed that out in the last database, but you can see again specifically you can choose one of these as a narrowing, certainly. And there's also kind of this fun thing down here. You can do this topic finder. And it's thinking, so fracking is the middle concept, but if you wanted to focus, say, on, I don't know, health and health concerns, you could click there. It's going to bring up 6 articles that address exactly that. If you already know you want to change it up, you can type in fracking and water. That's going to change this wheel, but it does the same thing. It helps you in. And just like the other other ones, it takes you exactly to the article, citation tools,